Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our first masterclass of 2024. We've got a big one to start the year off today. To begin with, my name is Kate Golby. I am a senior behavioural analyst here at Grist. Now, for those of you who don't know Grist very well, we are a change management consultancy that specialises in the people side of change, and we've been doing it for over 30 years. Our programs drive behavioural change that is reflected in real-world performance results while developing skill, boosting engagement, lifting motivation, and helping your people achieve their goals. Now, at this point, there might be a few of you thinking, I came here to hear about an AI bot, and what's that got to do with people and behaviours and engagement? Well, today we hope to answer that question and plenty of others as we introduce Grist's newest team member, BON the coachbot. So BON is Grist's very first AI tool, and we have just launched the beta phase. At this stage, we are in the recruiting phase. So we're looking for early adopters such as yourselves to be among the first to hang out with BON. And today we want to give you a bit of context and share the journey that's led us to the creation of BON and how it works, and discuss a little bit about the potential applications. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you'd like to interact with us, please use the chat function on your control panel. You can ask questions or make any comments you like as we go through. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So please pop them in there as we go so you don't forget them. And for the best experience and to see whoever is speaking in the nice big picture, if you go to the view drop down menu and select speaker, you'll be able to see them nice and clearly. Okay, along with BON and myself today, we are joined by Grist's MD, Peter Grist, and the Dr. Frankenstein behind BON, the AI architect and head of our insights and innovation here at Grist, Stacey Makshakova. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us, Kate.
Okay, Peter, I'm going to start with you today. As a lot of us are aware, there's been a real transformation occurring in the learning and development industry currently. Could you talk us through a little bit about how this change has affected Grist and led us to start looking into AI as an option or as a tool?
Yeah, I think the best context I can provide for why at Grist we've really started leaning into this AI space is to really talk about the rate of change in society and that feeling and I think, as we're all aware of, the increasing rate of change that's actually happening out there. And we're not seeing any signs of that slowing down at all. Everything we've been through COVID a couple of years ago. That caused massive change and disruption to what we do, particularly in the white collar industries. We're only just on the beginning of the changes that are going to come down the line due to climate change. And now on top of that, we've got this thing called AI, and that's all accelerating the amount of change that we're actually seeing happening. And this increasing rate of change that we're seeing in society is actually leading to a widening of the skills gap. And by that, I mean that the skills that people have today are not necessarily the skills they're going to need in the future. And as change accelerates, we see that gap getting wider and wider. In fact, the World Economic Forum is predicting that 60% of all workers will need to be retrained in the next 5 years. So that's a massive challenge in itself. But in developed economies like Australia, we've also got a demographic change that's happening, and means we've got an aging population, and that means that we end up with the percentage of people of working age becomes a smaller percentage of your overall workforce. So we've got this period in time where there's going to be less people to do the work, but they may not have the skills that we actually need because of the rate of change that's happening.
Yeah, okay. So I've heard people use the term sort of revolution in that it's really just the next stage in the Industrial Revolution, right? So as a result of this revolution and technology change, many of the skills employees currently have and use are going to become redundant. Is that what I'm kind of getting from that?
Yeah, I think a great way to think about AI is the Industrial Revolution was automation for blue collar workers. AI is automation for white collar workers. So it's going to disrupt the white collar workforce the way the Industrial Revolution did for the blue collar workforce. So yes, you're correct.
Yeah, and so and in addition, obviously, there's that, like you said, the aging population that's going to further impact the whole
Yes.
kind of the workforce,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, so
absolutely.
I imagine then that's going to really create challenges for employees with, the new skills required and a smaller pool to select from.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I mean, where are they going to get employees from,
Yeah.
with the right skills?
Well, Kate, that is the $1 million question, or maybe it should be $1 billion or even $1 trillion question, given inflation over the last few years. But I think the obvious answer to that is we need to retrain and retain the people that you've already got. Now, historically, organisations haven't been really very good at this. Organisations have often worked on the premise that the educational system will build the skills that are required, and there'll be employees out there that you can go and get and employ, and that we just go and tap the market in order to build out those skills gaps. But given what we've just been talking about, the rate of change, the skills won't be actually developed in many people, and there won't be as many of them. That's just not an approach that's going to be sustainable in the future. And I think one of the points I'd like to get across today is that our entire L&D and change systems were built for another time. They're completely not up to the task of the challenge that's actually ahead of us. So while AI might be causing the problem, you might call it, or creating the challenges that we're facing into, it's actually also part of the solution. So, how can we use AI to transform the way we do learning and development and change so that we can actually meet the challenges? And that's certainly the challenge that Grist has really set itself to be part of, is how do we be part of this AI-driven transformation in the learning and development industry? And BON, our coachbot, is our first step in this direction. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Yes. All right. Well, this seems like a good place to bring Stacey into the conversation then. You've been instrumental, Stacey, in creating this tool. Can you give us some insight into really why Grist chose this approach of developing an AI-powered chatbot to start addressing these challenges?
Yeah, sure. So we know that one way to accelerate the rate at which people learn new skills is to provide them with high frequency and high quality coaching. And usually this role falls to leaders. But we also know that leaders are time poor. They sometimes don't have time for coaching at all, let alone for frequent coaching. And also sometimes the level of coaching skills is just not quite there. So we've been experimenting with generative AI platforms, and we realized that it could be a great tool to address the frequency issue and provide this kind of on-demand coaching. And also, when we were experimenting, we wanted to make sure that the quality of coaching that's provided is actually good. And we decided to adapt our own tactical coaching methodology, ACDC, to train the bot.
Okay, great. And the target audience for BON, Stacey?
Well, for this version, the target audience would be people leaders, so people who have direct reports, and specifically those who want to improve their coaching skills. And I mentioned people leaders quite specifically because we wanted to stay away from coaching people who are working in the front line, who interact directly with customers. And there were a couple of reasons for that. First, we were just concerned that an AI tool will be providing any sort of advice to people on how to service and how to sell products to people in highly regulated industries. And the other reason was that we also wanted to avoid people putting any customer data in, which sometimes might happen during the coaching conversations about customer conversations.
Fantastic. Okay, so you see really BON as something that will work with coaches as opposed to maybe having team members use it as a coach replacement. Is that right?
Yes, as long as those people have some direct reports and they want to improve coaching skills, yes.
Okay, Fantastic. All right. Now, you mentioned the ACDC model, I suppose, and that this is a tool working with that, tactical coaching model, ACDC. Can you explain a little bit more about what that model is?
Yes, so this is essentially like a conversation framework for coaching. So for coaching between a leader and the team member. And it breaks down the conversation into 4 phases. So it's agenda, current state, desired state, and commitment. And then it further breaks down those phases into very specific, what we call micro behaviors. And we've been using that framework extensively to help people develop their coaching skills rapidly and achieve behavior change within the team. So we've used that methodology to build BON, and it follows the coaching approach, which means that you should expect it to ask you questions rather than telling you all the answers.
Okay, excellent. All right, so it sounds like it's going to be a conversation rather than an immediate answer. Is that what you're
That's
sort of
correct.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So Pete, I'll come back to you. We've discussed skill redundancy just before, and you did sort of touch on that point of, AI possibly, being the problem, but also being part of the solution. So I just want to know there is a reasonably and maybe slightly irrationally, possibly, a fear around AI taking over, getting rid of all the jobs, leaving humans with no control. And so is Grist creating a bot and adding to that AI, I mean, lack of a better term, noise, it's speeding up that transition, and is this a valid concern?
Yeah. Absolutely, it's a valid concern, and I think it's beholden on anyone who's using AI or developing AI products to be thinking through how what they're producing benefits humans and not just machines and computers and technology. We've got to be very cognizant of the impact that it has on real people. But it's interesting, though, when you play with AI, the more you play with it, you realize that it's really, really good at a lot of things and not so good at some other things. So its ability to process data and then synthesize insights is just unbelievably good and way, way beyond what us as human beings could ever do on our own. But interestingly, when you start to try and get it to work with the nuances of human conversations and emotional and social skills, it's still wanting quite a bit. So what we think is that the actual win-win situation is to actually use AI to augment what we do as humans. And as I said before, it's about automation. So if we can actually automate some of those mundane, repetitive tasks that a lot of white-collar workers are doing, we can free up humans to do what we're better at, which is be human, and have conversations. And interestingly, McKinsey produced a report last year that was saying that as we automate tasks, the roles that are going to be left for us as humans is going to be the emotional and social and cognitive and problem solving and working as teams to overcome complex problems. So we do see it very much about a human computer connection and tools to augment what we do well, rather than actually replacing us. So really creating roles that make us more productive, but also more fulfilling roles as well, rather than just saying, look, you're all going to be not needed anymore.
Yeah, leaving the fun stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I think that's really given us a good, concise basis of the why and the what. And now I suppose it's time to look at the how. So, Stacey, would you be able to give us a bit of a look at BON and take us through exactly how it can be used to enhance a coaching conversation?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. So the first thing I want to say before I share my screen is that BON was built using the same generative AI model as ChatGPT. But that's where the similarities probably end, because we've built it to interact with people differently. And I will just show you in a moment what I mean by that. So let's say I am a leader who struggles with coaching my experienced team members. And if I go to ChatGPT and type I struggle with team members. Let's see what it comes up with. So as you can see here, it immediately started providing me advice, which is great. Sometimes that's exactly what I need. I just need some ideas. But sometimes the problem can be a little bit deeper. And instead of just getting the ideas, we need to think through the problem that we have so that we can come up with our own solution. And that's exactly where BON is great. So I shared the same problem statement with BON. I said I struggle with coaching experienced team members. And instead of providing me the advice, what it did, it started a conversation with me. I will just read out what it said in the conversation that I started with BON this morning, but which I will continue later in front of you all. So it said, thank you for sharing that. In our session today, we will discuss your current coaching outcomes when working with experienced team members, your approach to coaching them, and what could be improved to help you achieve your desired outcomes. At the end, we will set a goal. How does it sound? So it started, as I said, following our ACDC methodology with the agenda statement and asked for my input. And I said, sounds good. So I will scroll down to the bottom of the conversation that I had with it. I stopped sort of in the middle, just so that I don't spend the whole time here interacting with BON. Where I stopped is where it asked me, or it told me that it seems like there may be a disconnect between your coaching approach and the response you're getting from your experienced team members. What do you think needs to change in your coaching behavior when working with these team members to make them more receptive to your feedback and suggestions? So it responded to me saying that, well, they were not very receptive to my feedback. And let's now try and see what it does when I say that I'm not sure what I need to do. Okay. So what the BON said is, let's explore together. When coaching experienced team members who may have their own ways of doing things, it can be helpful to shift from telling them what to do to asking more open-ended questions to guide them to their own solutions. How do you think adapting your approach to ask more questions and involve them in the conversation could impact their receptiveness to your coaching? And this is exactly, I guess, where we would want the BON to become a coach and help us prompt our thinking. So let's see what happens next. Kate or Peter, any ideas on what I could tell it what to do next?
I think suggesting that that's a good idea and asking it if it's got some thoughts about the open-ended questions that it could ask.
Okay. So it said that it's a great step forward. Thank you for acknowledgement. Open questions can help stimulate critical thinking and problem solving in your team members. For example, you could ask questions like, how do you think asking customers why they called can benefit our understanding of their needs? Or, what are some other ways we could uncover additional customer needs during interactions? How do you think incorporating these types of questions into your coaching conversations could help your experienced team members be more engaged and open to exploring new approaches? I actually quite like these questions. All right.
Stacey, this is probably a good point to talk to the those on the webinar about. This is really live TV. You know, whenever we ask these questions, we get slightly different responses. And in the early days, we got responses that went in all sorts of strange directions. But, you know, Stacey's been able to develop the algorithm sitting and the prompt sitting behind this, that it really starts to give people some really good ideas about how they could improve their coaching.
Okay. And also, just to add into Peter's comment, before when I had an interaction with Bonnie, it went into a slightly different direction. So every time the conversation, even if it's the same topic, it will not look exactly the same. So here, it said that's a great insight. Being more open to your feedback is a positive outcome to aim for. How specifically do you think asking more open questions will help you in achieving this goal? All right. Can you think of a specific situation where you can start applying this new approach with your experienced team members? Okay. It said that it was a great plan to start applying this approach in my next coaching session, and said, how many times do you think you can incorporate asking open questions in your next coaching session with your experienced team members? So I said that I can do it at least twice, and Bon responded, that sounds like a reasonable target. By when do you aim to achieve this goal of incorporating open questions at least twice in your next coaching session? Of next week. Then it went into this goal setting part, and that again he's following, or it is following, our methodology, and it asked me to about how I'm going to check the progress of incorporating the questions into my coaching. And finally, it asked me, are you confident that you can achieve your goal of incorporating open questions at least twice in your coaching session with experienced team members by the end of next week? I'll say yes. Fantastic. I believe you are on the right track to improve your coaching skills with your experienced team members. Remember to reflect on how the use of open questions impacts the receptiveness of your team members to your feedback. If you encounter any challenges or successes along the way, feel free to reassess and adjust your approach as needed. Is there anything else you would like to discuss or any other support you need in this area? So this is it.
Great. I love it. And, I really liked seeing that, I guess, comparison to something like ChatGPT, which, I'm sure a lot of us have used in the past. And like you say, it absolutely can give us an answer. And I sort of saw we actually moved screens as it was still kind of generating a response, which was, getting increasingly long. And although it did give, that immediate response, because it kind of has that volume of that it can be overwhelming. It's so probably because it's acting on such a small phrase from the inputter, and creating such a massive response. It can be obviously some of it will hit the mark, some of it won't. But because Bon really does take the time to kind of get into exactly the problem and talk through it in that sort of systematic step-by-step nature, back and forth conversation, it really, it gave us two, like you said, really good open-ended questions, that we could go, okay, all right, this I can use, rather than sort of sifting through that massive ChatGPT response, which, although this conversation took 6 minutes or something like that to kind of get through there, is probably a lot quicker than trying to sort through what was actually useful to me in that ChatGPT response. So yeah, I do, for me, it really helps to have that systematic, let's step back and take it one step at a time and focus on it, on that sort of smaller, I guess, micro behavior. Yeah. So I can see some real, like, fantastic applications for this. Obviously, I just sort of spoke about how this can take longer, but I can see that we could almost break this bond tool down to, maybe not tackle the whole coaching conversation of, AC/DC process, but maybe focus on a particular part of it, maybe just the goal setting, or, what are other, and even other conversations. We actually had sort of a comment through the week that someone was having a play and they applied it to just a life situation, not work related at all. And it came up with these fantastic responses and actually provided some really good insight into how to tackle this sort of more broad life problem. So Peter, where do you see Bon's next iteration?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're never quite sure where you go when you start an innovation program like this. So to hear that one of our early adopters was using it to have a better relationship with their teenage children was quite funny. But apparently they found it very helpful. So it's pretty much unlimited where we can go with this, Kate. And what you're seeing here is just the start. At Grist, we have this vision of an AI augmented bot or something like BON being there with you at every stage of your learning and change journey. So, imagine a really good leader or a great mentor as individuals are reskilling over the years that are coming and trying to do it more rapidly, and they're trying to apply new and better ways of doing things on the job. They've just got this resource that they can talk to at any time to help them get a little better. So that could be anything from BON, as you've seen now. It could be a version of, we are working on things like a version of BON which will become a third party in the conversation. So you'll still have the leader and the coachee, but BON will be in the room as well, providing structure and ideas. So it could augment a coaching session that way as a third party. As you mentioned, we've already developed a bot that just focuses on goal setting. So if you've set a goal, you can put it in and it'll give you some feedback on how you could make that goal a lot more specific and, along the lines of something like a SMART mechanism. We're going to be using BON to help people write case studies and reflect on learning, so they can really start to draw out what they've done and the new and different thing they did, and then how that relates to actually the impact that they've had, say, on a customer or on business results. Performance conversations, something that every leader has got to do at some stage, usually regularly with their team. How could we create a bot that would actually help people prepare for it, undertake it, and even follow up after the session? So that's where we see the future of these chatbots going, is they become a support and a resource and a tool that's available at every stage of someone's learning journey, and we speed up the rate with which people apply learning and achieve mastery.
Excellent. Yeah, very exciting stuff. I love it. Can't wait to see, how those new rollouts. That'll be really interesting. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Peter and Stacey. I hope that this has excited our audience as much as it has, us here at Grist. I'm really excited to see the opportunities that BON can provide, and our audience, we really encourage you to head over to BON and have a play. I'm going to share my screen in a moment with the link. As I said up front, we are in the beta phase, so we will continue in that phase for the remainder of March, and then during this phase, your feedback is super crucial. So to create the best BON possible, we need user feedback. And so after you've had a bit of a chat, please take the 2 minutes to complete the feedback surveys that arrive in your inbox, and that will give us invaluable information that we can act and improve the tool. Now, the easiest way to get to BON is in this link, which I will share with you right now. And that's just it there, that through the AI tools page on the Grist website. But you will also receive an email with the link to this recording and a direct link to BON, which will come through in your email tomorrow. And to keep up to date with any future events that we've got, any masterclasses, and even more BON tools, please subscribe to our monthly email, or just head over to give us a follow on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. Otherwise, just the events page on our website will give you an update on all of the things that we're up to. So thank you so much for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sorry,
yes,
Kate,
Peter.
we've got one question before we finish up.
I'm trying to wind you up early. All right.
No, there's questions come through about can this be used to teach coaching, and it's a really good question, because while the bot, as in its current format, it uses AC/DC in our coaching methodology, it's interesting that it doesn't necessarily provide advice directly related to how to use the AC/DC model, and that's certainly something that we're going to work on in the future. So once BON understands your problems, it could start to direct you to the part in the conversation that could be the particular issue. However, what it does right now in regard to teaching coaching is, as we just saw it when Stacey demonstrated it, if you ask and say, I'm not sure, or how do you think I could go about this, it's actually pretty good at giving you some ideas around how you could help solve your problem. So yeah, more to come in this space with regard to how it might go about actually teaching coaching methodology itself.
Fantastic. And sorry, is there anyone else that has a question? Is there any raised hands there? Sorry, my screen's not showing me.
I think that was
Anyone
the
else?
last
That's
one.
it.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Peter and Stacey, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm going to head over to BON and have a little chat about how this webinar went. Set a goal for my next webinar. Maybe ask some more questions. Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
No
you.
worries. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.